Hello and welcome. In this video, we are all about focusing on the field. So welcome. Hello and welcome to Living Beyond the Veil. I am Kari Caldwell, and in this video, we are focusing on the field. What does that even mean? Well, as you've seen in the Light Mesa video, we have the field of energy that we are working with. And within this field of energy, I want to talk more about what is behind that. What is the purpose? Where are we sourcing our energy from? So as we dive in, it's all about focusing on the field, getting better at intuitively connecting with those pieces that are guiding us, those pieces that for through all of our trials and tribulations and everything we've been through on this journey of life have been calling us closer and closer to it. And so to understand it, to understand why we're doing the work within each of the fields of maiden and mother and queen and wild woman and crone and optimizing, what is it that we're actually optimizing? How are we optimizing? And the purpose or what it is that we're doing in there is all about connecting to love. So we're going to be talking about this field of love, how we can optimize our connection to it as we go through not only the entire program, but also in today's video. So love, the field of one, the field of your Hello and welcome to Living Beyond the Veil. I'm Kari Caldwell, as you know, and to be walking this journey with you is really what my purpose is all about. And the ways in which I get to show up in this video series is all about helping you ultimately see yourself in new ways, connect with yourself in new ways for the purpose of what we are going to be talking about in today's video, which is getting better at focusing on the field. Focusing on the field is essentially referring to the field of energy that makes up and constitutes who and what we are, right? In the last video, in the Light Mesa video, I spoke a lot about how each of us has a unique signature of energy. And when we master each of these energy centers, the maiden, the mother, the queen, and the crone, when we master each of those, essentially, we bring ourselves into our most unique and divine expression of that center energy spiral. So focusing on the field is like allowing for that field of energy that is most divinely attuned to our individual purpose, to our individual expression of our light factor, of who and what we are, to come through. So it's important to understand at its core what it's comprised of. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So the field of one, the fields that we are connecting to, it's universal to all of us. And the ways in which each of us expresses it becomes our unique signature imprint that we see here at the center. But this field of one essentially is our creation force. We're going to talk more about that as we move through the videos here. So what is your creation force? Well, we've all heard of this most likely at this juncture. If you've made it to a program like mine, you've probably been tapping into creation force. And so for the purposes of my program and these videos, I want to clarify and define what it really looks like and feels like. And we're going to get more into this in the Oya programs as you progress through the program. But for today, and understanding the field of energy, what creation force is all about for me. Oops, we're jumping ahead there. Is that core universal energy of love, of unity, of light, of joy, and compassion that comes up and through the field of one. And so understanding unity or universality as a vibration, that we are part of one all consciousness of oneness, understanding that love is a force, right? That joy is one of the highest expressions of that love, and that it vibrates in light, and it vibrates in sound, and it vibrates in love. It's all through vibrationality or vibrations that our creation force expresses itself. And so this image is here to help us really understand that this force is always around us. It's always moving through us. And it not only comes up from the earth and moves out and around and through us like a big donut flowing around us, it also flows in and around. It pulses out of each and every cell. So it happens on a macro level, and it happens on a micro level within each cell. And what you're going to get good at as you progress through this program is not only connecting with your own unique creation force, but fine tuning where the density is, where the heavier energies are, or the negative electrons are, and replacing them with that brilliant, bright light, that love creation force. So allowing for that to be the frequency that your body vibrates on, most acutely attuned to the divine source, to the divine essence of its most original inception in nature. So as our creation force, whether you realize it or not, your creation force has always been in action. It has always been moving and shaking and helping you make your life happen. And essentially, as you're working with your creation force, its expression of it, its offshoots, start to manifest in certain ways. And so I like to lump these into 4 categories. It will express itself in the form of money or your currency or your value. It expresses itself in relationships. It expresses itself in health, and it expresses itself in career. And so each of these things, as we work our way through at that creation force, the more attuned to our divine nature, to the closest expression of creation force we are, the better we are feeling in each of these 3D reality categories. The better our relationship is with our finances, the better our relationship is in relationship, the better our mental and emotional health is, our physical health is. And of course, career to me isn't just what your daily job is, it's the work you're doing in the world that lights you up, that helps you feel fulfilled. And ideally, those 2 things, your career and what lights you up, are intricately connected. And I love that we are getting rain as we're doing this, because it is flushing out all of this energy as we are in the creation force, the creation channel. So that original, like the most attuned to the field, right? If we have the most divine expression of the field, it's going to be the love, the light, the joy, the unity, the most high frequency sound vibrations. And as it relates to you, what that looks like are your desires, right? So we put those closest at the bottom of the pyramid here to the desires, an inverted pyramid, right? And as that creation force comes through your body, up and through your body, it starts to bounce off of different things, and it gets filtered down, and it compresses into things more like dreams. So we go from having just a core desire, say maybe to experience love, and that love then, or freedom, and then that love or freedom turns into a dream, like I would love to travel, right? And so that dream of traveling is a way we can express our freedom or experience our freedom. And then as that continues to express, that manifests itself into projects. We start setting goals and having visions and interpreting things in certain ways. And then those projects ultimately manifest themselves once they come up and out of the subconscious, right? Like you could basically consider everything below the line, below the projects here. You could consider all of that to be subconscious. And then we kind of pop above the subconscious and we start to see the actual expressions of relationship, career, health, money, and then the multiple things that we could start going into underneath that. And that's the level that we work at when we're working with life coaches, we're working in Earth School, we're working in health coaching, that sort of thing. down below the surface in the subconscious is where we're really focusing on the field. And what I have come to find, if we can get the slide to skip to the next, here we go. What I have come to find is that within the body, essentially those desires start to make their way through. But as they do, they bounce off of different things. They bounce off of fear. They bounce off of overwhelm. They bounce off of exhaustion, these different learned patterns. And sometimes these learned patterns are our own because we've actually had an experience. And other times these learned patterns are things that we've inherited from mom or dad energetically, or even from down the line, from down the family tree. And what's incredible about the field of one, about the field of universality and joy and love and light, is that space and time doesn't exist, right? And so as we learn to drop into these different energies, it's essentially like we can clear these fields open, we can pop it open and allow for these fields of these more dense emotional vibrations to open up, so that instead of ping-ponging as your desires are coming through and expressing themselves, instead of ping-ponging off of fear, desire, powerlessness, guilt, anger, shame, distrust, all of these things, that by the time it hits our mind and our mind starts to go to work on what the projects are and the goals and vision and how we're going to piece it all together, it hasn't been filtered out by ping-ponging off of all of these different emotional centers throughout the body. So with that being said, I want to talk for a moment about that love, about that field that those desires are created in. And it's important to recognize that in the English language, we have only one word for love, and that's love. But in the Chinese language, there are over 500 words to express the emotion of love. Think about that for a moment. 500 words. That means there are that many different permutations of the experience of love. And I think if we think about, say, loving our mom versus loving our dad versus loving our kids versus loving our husband versus loving our best friend, I think that was maybe 5 or 6 that I just rattled off right there, different expressions and types of love that get poured out. So it's easy to understand how there can be so many words packed into one vibration. But in reality, love is the foundation of it all. And so we could go back here and essentially say that distrust also is a word to use for love. Guilt is a word to use for love. Shame, any of these vibrations. And that's because at the peak, what everything is feeding off of is at its core, again, the field is made of love. And as beliefs and systems and density gets implied, it just creates density around it. So the expression of it becomes a little bit less, but it never changes the fact that it's still love. It's just a different expression of it. Essentially, love is that creative power that for all of us is our divine birthright. And it's not something that is exclusive just to the experience of being human. Yes, humans experience love, souls experience love, and every vibrational frequency in the cosmos, in the universe, as broad as we want to go, all of creation experiences love because love is creation. So the more your love shines, the more in tune you are with that original source of love, the more expressed you are going to be, the more connected to that original blueprint, that original spiral of what your purpose is, of what you came here to fulfill is going to be. Because at its core, love is light, it's joy, it's unity. So a couple things to understand about love. Love is free of space and time because, again, it's creation. Love creates space and time. Love came before space and time. So it exists and it can function outside of stories. It can function outside of events and occurrences happening. Love is also really at its core, it's the only pure original reality. no matter what, absolutely everything is still love. We can't unwind that. We can't undo that. But the most important thing to take away from this is that love begets itself, meaning it is in constant action. And the higher the degree of love, the stronger it is. So love is constantly wanting to experience itself over and over and over again, which is how you have ended up here with me, because essentially your soul has experienced a disconnect from love, or not able, an ability to not connect with its expression as clearly as it would like to, and you haven't been able to figure out why, and you need the tools and the resources to do that, for the exclusive purpose of allowing that love, like a flower, to blossom and grow, to become stronger, to give you that inner strength, that inner core. So, as I mentioned, degrees of love, this is really what it's all about, because love is experienced based on your own perceptions. We all use the word, but again, so many different vibrations in which it exists, so many. And my version of it to someone else could appear to be like very dark and dense, like, oh my God, that wasn't an expression of love, right? Yet to me, it could be my highest expression or my highest degree of love. It's all about our frame of reference. So as you change your perception of love, and you change your understanding of love, then your reality will change with it. So, my invitation to you is to choose the greatest degree of love in your perception of everyone and everything. And in turn, it will expand your capacity for love. One of my favorite words to use around love is just be curious, right? When you see someone who's acting from a space that seems to be fearful or shameful or like really judgmental, my invitation to you is to be curious about that. Like, how is that an expression of love for them? Interesting, right? Don't take away the fact that they too, even though they could be like your most detached person from love, don't take that away from them. Let them still continue to be attached to that. You're such a prick. Oh, fuck off. So, in summary, love is experienced in degrees of love, which is how we get to step into the gift of the divine feminine and the goddess. And whether you're man or woman, whoever you are, enjoying my courses and my programs, the divine feminine is outside of space and time. It's outside of our gender identification and everything else. The divine feminine is essentially our intuition, it's our inner world. Masculine is our action, it's our goal orientation, it's everything on that triangle that is in the conscious world. Divine feminine is what we refer to when we're talking about that intuitive center, when we're reflecting, when we're going within, when we're really allowing ourselves to feel as deeply as we possibly can. And your intuition is essentially your primary link to love. We are all intuitive. You can feel everything, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I know because I was one of those people who was raised to believe I mean, I would have told you my intuition was pretty good, but did I work it? Was I always a spiritual guru? No, absolutely not. I was a corporate compensation analyst. And yet I learned that I could develop my intuition. I learned how to use the divine feminine that was living within me. It's a channel, it's a current of energy that man or woman, we all possess. And the reality is, we aren't formally trained to incorporate these unique intuitive strengths that we possess. And if you think about it, we are doing our lives with more than, I'd like to say, with 50% of our hands tied behind our back. But the reality is, our subconscious represents over 93%. I'm not good on statistics and numbers and the science, but it's like 93% of our intuitive nature, our intuitive force, the insights are beneath the surface. And so all of the work you do, all of the strategizing, analyzing, goal setting, efforting you do comes without relying exclusively on the intuition as your guiding force. It's like you might as well have like had your mouth bound, your hands tied, your feet bound, and been sitting there told to like make life happen with absolutely minimal skill sets involved. And so kudos to all of us for getting this far, for figuring it out. And no wonder it's been a challenge. No wonder it's been a struggle. No wonder we've learned to hold back because we've had to dismiss the intuitive hits and the feelings that connect us to our divine nature, that connect us to this field that is the gateway and the path to our own unique inner strengths. So, as we progress through the program, you are going to learn about different feminine archetypes, like the goddess archetype. Already, as you've seen in the light mesa grid, we have the maiden, the mother, the queen, and the crone. And we look to the goddess because they are stories that get told. Throughout my journey, I always wanted to understand the how and not just blindly follow along with relying on the faith in myself and in spirit. I just have, that's never been enough for me. And the only place, the best place I have found that guidance, especially for the models that we're taught, especially when we know that emotions, love is the core force that is guiding all of this, is through looking at the stories of the goddesses, because they essentially tell us how humanity has navigated these different emotional tools in the past. Take, for example, the goddess Kali. She's the goddess of death in the Hindu religion, death and destruction. And yet she ultimately represents the creation force and is known as the giver of life, because all things must die to be born again. And so is that an emotion of fear, or is it an emotion of opportunity when we know that a cycle has come to an end and it's time to rebirth ourselves? In most circumstances, at least at this juncture in my life, I know I am ready to rebirth myself over and over and over again, because as soon as I figure out what I'm up to and I'm figure out what I'm doing wrong, I can't wait to shed that piece of whatever it is I may have been doing. And so the stories of the goddess give us insight and tools to navigate working some of these cycles. The goddess archetype is essentially that model. It represents that model for creation, for manifesting, for magnetizing these different patterns, and for tapping into the field of the quantum. So the more we understand the mythology and these energetic fields, the more we are tapping our creation force and we are focusing on that field of love. So the archetype, just to help us break it down, because I know for me particularly, understanding the goddess, I come from a Christian upbringing, but it was a very liberal and very open Christian upbringing. There wasn't like a lot of religious doctrine or beliefs that were really enforced on it. But even still, with that openness built into it, there was still no understanding of the goddess for me. So when I found this much later in my life, I really needed to understand it from the archetypal perspective. And an archetype, just for those of you that aren't familiar really with what this is essentially they are inherited tendencies within the human mind to mirror or mimic representations of mythological motifs. So they become universal to everyone. They are symbols, they represent ideas and imagery that are older than historic man. And therefore, we can fall back on them and activate them, use them to embody the core qualities which we're essentially looking to adapt for ourselves, because we maybe haven't figured out how to, be more in our power, or we haven't figured out how to love. Or one that I'm constantly working on is compassion, right? I came from a line of women that used judgment and being judgmental as a tool as a defense mechanism tool, right? And so if we're judgmental, it's much easier to keep a wall and a boundary around us. And so compassion is one of the archetypes that I work with quite a bit. And that's the goddess Kuan Yin, who embodies those lessons and those stories. So a little bit of an example with that, I believe. Last slide. So this linking us into our next set of exercises. And that is ultimately, as I showed you in the pyramid we were working off of, love is desire. Focusing on this field of love is all about desire, because love, when it hits your body, it's flowing and it expresses itself through the desires that you feel. So my questions to you are, as you dive into the desires exercises, is what is your heart longing for? What are you craving to experience? What are you craving? What is your heart longing for? What are you really wanting to call in? With that being said, I invite you to continue through the videos, do a couple of the meditations, and definitely in the Maiden, we start to dive into these desires exercises. Namaste. So much love. I'll see you in the next video.